Welcome to my naturally sweetened life. Let's pressure can some green beans. First, you prep the green beans. Take the green bean and snap off each end. Then, snap the green bean into 1 to 2 inch pieces. Taking off both ends of the green bean just ensures that the fibrous or woody pieces are off of the bean, and it gives a better eating experience. Continue this process until all of the beans have been prepped. Fill the bowl with water to cover the vegetables and swish them around with your hand, getting all of the dirt and debris off of the beans. Wash your canning jars with hot, soapy water. You can use pints or quarts depending on your family's needs. Today I will be using quart jars because that is how much I need per meal. This is a great time to inspect your canning jars for any cracks or chips in the jar. If you do find any flaws in your jar, be sure just to throw it away. You don't want anything interfering with a good seal. These are the tools we'll be using today: a funnel and a debubbler, which is just a really thin, long piece of plastic that you stick down in the jar to release the air bubbles from your jar. If you don't have one of these, you can use a skewer or a butter knife or a very thin spatula. Lastly, and I think most importantly, is the jar grabber. This tool is specifically made to grab and pick up your jars from the canner. They can do regular mouth or wide mouth. This tool is super helpful to pick up the jars from the really hot canner so you won't burn your hand. Today I will be using the raw pack method, which just means I am not going to cook the green beans or blanch them before putting them in the jar. Instead, I'm taking the raw green beans and packing them into the jars as tightly as I can. Gently tap the jar on the counter to make the green beans fall into place. Be sure to leave a 1-inch headspace. That just means that your food needs to be 1 inch away from the lid at the top of the jar. There is a specific measuring tool for this that you can get in your canning supply section at the grocery store. Without the tool, just look at the jar and you can see where the jar ends and then the screw threads begin at the top of the jar. You want to fill your green beans to the bottom of those screw lines, or the first line. That is the 1-inch headspace. Fill each jar with hot tap water. Again, leave a 1-inch headspace for the water as well. Gently insert the debubbler into each jar, pressing the vegetables toward the center of the jar, which will release all of the air bubbles. Now it's time to put the lid on each jar and then the rings. And by the way, I'm not sponsored, but my favorite lid are Superb brand lids. They have a really good seal rate and they're made in Ohio. Now that our jars are ready, we have our canner filled with the proper amount of water, and you need to follow your manufacturer's instructions on how much water you need. And then right now is the time where I turn the heat on to start heating up the canner. I do it this way to prevent the jars from cracking. The water inside the canner and the water inside of the jars are the same temperature. Place the lid on the canner and lock it into place. Now we wait for the canner to heat up. Once a steady stream of steam comes out of the air vent pipe, you will time it for 10 minutes. Place the weight on the canner and time it for 20 minutes for pints, 25 minutes for quarts. Be sure to know the altitude at which you live so you can know the correct pressure and the correct timing for your canning project. Once the timer is up, you turn the heat off and wait for everything to cool down. Once the cover lock button in the back drops down, you want to open up your canner and let it sit for a few minutes. Everything inside is extremely hot and the water inside the jars are bubbling, and if you pull that out immediately into the cooler air, it's going to siphon and you're going to lose some of the water in your jars. After about 5 or 10 minutes, come back and gently lift your jars out of the canner and onto a towel-lined countertop. The towel acts as a buffer on the cold counter against the hot jars, and that way your jars won't crack touching that really cold countertop. Let your jars cool completely, and once they are cooled and once you can see that they have a good seal, take the rings off because those are no longer needed. And give your jars a good wash with hot soapy water. Label your jars with what the contents are and the year that you made them, and store them in a cool, dry place for up to a year. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.